Anybody standing up in opposition to this has an obligation to stand up and put a viable, realistic alternative on the table. And I have yet to see anybody do that.
Secretary of State John Kerry still pushing for that nuclear deal with Iran. The negotiations coming down to the wire as the March 31st deadline looms. Remaining with me from Newsmax LA, Larry Elder. Joining us via Skype from Washington, D.C., Michael Rubin of the American Enterprise Institute, who is also the author of the book Dancing with the Devil, The Perils of Engaging Rogue Regimes. Hey, Michael, looks like this administration is absolutely determined to engage the rogue regime that is Iran. Your assessment of what's going on with those talks?
Well, Secretary of State John Kerry has become so desperate for a deal that he's not letting anything, common sense, facts, national security, stand in his way. And therefore, when he says, I challenge anyone to come up with a plan that's more realistic, we need to take into account that it's not realistic when Secretary John Kerry is willing to give the Iranians everything they ask for.
Michael, is it true that during the negotiations, Iran has continued to enrich? Is it true that the Iranians have said they're not going to put the agreement down to paper? Is it true that the Iranians say that the sanctions have to be removed before they do any kind of deal?
Well, the Iranians have continued to enrich. Secretary of State John Kerry will say, well, they've abided by the Joint Plan of Action, but the Joint Plan of Action only covers a tiny fraction of their nuclear program. The International Atomic Energy Agency, for example, has said that under the course of the negotiations over the last 18 months, the Iranians haven't come clean on any of the issues about which the IAEA raised concern in 2011 with regard to potential possible military developments. And you're absolutely right that the Iranians are demanding a whole-scale lifting of UN sanctions as soon as the deal is signed. And unfortunately, Kerry seems so desperate for a deal, I'm worried he's about to give the Iranians what they want.
Well, the other aspect to this, Michael, is will the American people ever be informed of the details of this deal? Because it seems that not only is the administration trying to keep it secret now, what about releasing the details after a deal is done?
Well, you know, I thought that the world gave up this sort of secret treaties, secret deals before World War I, because we saw where that ended up. Ultimately, Congress really does need to stand up, and not only the 47 Republicans who are willing to put their names out on behalf of common sense, but also the Democrats who privately are with the Republicans, but publicly are still afraid of President Obama in the White House. This deal, if it's signed, is going to have far greater reverberations down the line than even the North Korea deal. And remember, North Korea today has nuclear weapons.
Michael, if you were Israel, what would you do?
Well, ultimately, if I were Israel, I would be working with, I mean, it sounds unbelievable at this point, my Arab partners, because Israel and the Arab world have much more in common now than Israel and the United States, because the United States has cast its lot with Iran. I mean, you have not only Israel, but Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, all sorts of countries in the region who are completely disgusted with the United States right now. But if Israel truly believes this is an existential threat, they've got to take matters into their own hands, however violent that will be.
Michael, let me ask you about domestic politics and another decision with national security implications. That is the fact that the Obama administration swapped 5 Taliban terror leaders in exchange for Bo Bergdahl, who's just been charged, as we know, with desertion. Will popular opinion dissuade this White House based on that decision, or is it just full speed ahead, no matter questions about their judgment or the lack of judgment? About a minute remains in this segment, sir.
Hey, it's full steam ahead. Unfortunately, what we're seeing now is the real Barack Obama, a Barack Obama that's unconstrained by having to face elections in the future, a Barack Obama who's not a neoconservative, he's not a realist, he's an egoist. He doesn't care what his own party thinks, and he's going to leave a trail of destruction for the next 18 months of his presidency.
That is an ominous note, Michael Rubin, and when we continue, we're going to turn to another trouble spot in the world, a spot that Barack Obama once said was the very model of cooperation with an Islamic state, and that is developments in Yemen that are disturbing, but on this very busy news day, you may not be fully aware of exactly what has transpired in Yemen. More on that as we continue with Michael Rubin and with Larry Elder, and as America's Forum continues here from Newsmax TV. We'll be back right after this.